Let's do it, folks. Hello, and welcome to Dangerous Ideas. I am Lee Camp, coming to you at 8 p.m. on the East Coast, 5 p.m. on the Pacific Coast. What is up, everybody? I'm going to get into updates on Luigi Mangione. I'm going to get into Cory Booker's marathon speech that meant just south of nothing, and I'll explain why. I know to some it might have seemed exciting for a few minutes there, but I will explain all of that. I'm going to get into more updates on Israel, on Gaza, Israel's war crimes of the week. I feel like we need some sort of ongoing segment, and I don't just mean on this show. I mean on every show. Israel's war crimes of the week. But we're going to start off with the Cory Booker story that everyone's talking about. Yesterday, he wrapped up a 24-hour-long speech. By the way, everyone, please click thumbs up, click share, let people know about this, click subscribe, all that good stuff. Even if you listen to the podcast, you can click a 5-star rating. You can email it to your mom, whatever you got to do to fight the suppression. I'm excited to be here with you, and I'm excited. Some of you, it's 8 p.m. here, but for some of you, it's 1 a.m., 2 a.m. I love doing the night hangouts, all right? This is where the real shit gets talked about, okay? Not in the daylight hours. King daylight hours can go themselves. Good job on the bleep button there, Carl. Anyway, so Cory Booker, Senator Cory Booker, gave this speech. You guys all know by now. 24 hours long. Pools of urine down his leg, just running down the center aisle of the Senate. No, I have no idea what goes on in the bathroom area there. No, he doesn't get to go to the bathroom. You can't go to the bathroom. You can't bring anything to eat or drink in other than water. Apparently water or milk. How much did Big Ag have to lobby to make it water or milk that you can have during these things? But so here's the thing. There's a couple of things. Some people, some of the liberal media is saying, oh, this was some brave thing. This shows the Democrats are really fighting for this. They're doing the bold moves. A 24-hour speech. By the way, it is the longest speech ever recorded in Congress. It beat out Strom Thurmond's 21-hour speech against civil rights. It's got to really drive someone to stand up at the podium that long, and it's either fighting against civil rights or fighting for what is it Cory Booker's fighting for? No, here's the thing. It's not that many of the things he was saying, I disagree with. He's talking about people losing Social Security. He's talking about the harm that Trump is doing to people across the country. I don't disagree. The people losing Social Security, terrible thing. But this speech was largely meaningless. It was not even a filibuster. Some people are calling it a filibuster. A filibuster is designed to stop a bill from going forward. There was no bill. There was nothing happening. In fact, for most of this speech, 20 of the 24 hours or something, it was 24 hours and 20 minutes, I think. 20 of the 24 hours, the Senate wasn't even in session. I might have that hour slightly wrong. It might have been 18 of the 24 or whatever. But because most of it was in the middle of the night. So this largely didn't even interrupt the business of the Senate. That's how meaningless this speech was. It was not a filibuster because it did not stop a bill. It was not even in reference to a bill. It was just an I don't like Trump speech and I want people to pay attention to me speech. So that I have a problem on that level. It's meaningless. But I also have a problem on the level of 24 hours talking about everything Trump has done wrong, Elon Musk has done wrong, everything that makes people angry, everything that's infuriating. Much of it, again, I can agree with in certain ways. However, zero mentions of Palestine, zero mentions of Gaza. In fact, if you look at his little lapel there, if you look on his lapel, why does he have a yellow ribbon under the American flag? Well, the yellow ribbon, for those of you who are old enough, used to mean soldiers in the Iraq War. America did that all over the place for the soldiers in our Iraq invasion. Yay, yellow ribbon. Nowadays, it means we care about the Israeli hostages, is what people are using the yellow ribbon for. Only the Israeli hostages, not all hostages, not the Palestinian Gazan hostages that are held in Israel, tortured in Israel right now, 10,000 of them. No, we don't wear a ribbon for that. Those people don't matter. They are meaningless people. And, it's tempting to say they're meaningless people because they're not white, but Cory Booker, of course, himself is not white. Yet that doesn't matter. He is giving the talking points, or at least standing up for Israel in the same manner as those white ruling elite as well. And this is not new for Cory Booker. Cory Booker has been a pro-Israel, pro-Zionist senator ever since his earliest days. One of his best friends, who apparently he's no longer friends with, but or at least that's the claim. But one of his best friends in his upcoming years was Rabbi Shmuley. For those of you who don't know Rabbi Shmuley, he's the most rabid, insane, unhinged Zionist, like pro-genocide lunatic you will ever meet. And he's like the rabbi of the stars. So he's like besties with RFK Jr. and Roseanne and all these people. And apparently he thinks he speaks for all Jews because he has a name like Rabbi Shmuley, when in fact, I don't know. There are millions of anti-Zionist Jews like myself. There are millions of Jews who do not agree with this genocide, even if they think Israel should be a thing. So yet he runs around acting like he speaks for all Jews. He's a disgusting human being. It was Cory Booker and him like came up together. I guess they were at Oxford together. Anyway, they had a falling out apparently. Rabbi Shmuley says because Cory Booker voted for the Iran nuclear deal in 2015. One of the few positive things that Obama did was actually agree that we should not be at war with Iran, at least for that moment. Trump then ripped up the Iran nuclear deal, which had taken years to get into place. And anyway, Cory Booker voting for that is what ruined his friendship with Rabbi Shmuley. But anyway, so he does this 24-hour speech, and zero said for the people of Gaza. And literally, when you have 24 hours to speak, he talked about just about everything in the world. Because what else are you going to talk about? Alfred, thanks for pointing that out. I'd heard that Rabbi Shmuley was a dildo hawker, like he sells dildos, and I didn't look it up. I didn't research it. But apparently it's because he promotes his daughter's sex toy business. Which, by the way, promoting dildos, least offensive thing that rabbi does, or so-called rabbi does. And here are some more points from Mondo Vice. Cory Booker spoke for 25 hours about defending democracy. However, he invoked Hebrew scripture and added a yellow ribbon on his lapel for the Israeli hostages. He praised the Abraham Accords, spoke emotionally about Israel, and aligned himself with pro-Israel causes. But while Gaza burns, Booker said nothing about Israel's genocide in Palestine. No mention of the tens of thousands of Palestinians killed, aid workers, journalists, medics, no call to halt U.S. arms shipments, no recognition of international law or the ICJ's genocide ruling. He had time to say so much, but none of that. In 2019, he backed the anti-BDS legislation, which, of course, is a wild attack on freedom of speech. The idea that you can't not buy things, like you have to keep buying Israeli products. It's totally repulsive to say we can't even have the freedom of our own purchases in this so-called capitalist state. They also say he in 2019 delivered a fervent speech at AIPAC stating, "If I forget thee, O Israel, may I cut off my right hand," highlighting his deep allegiance to Israel. In 2021, he pushed normalization with Arab states at Palestinians' expense. Yeah, it's called normalization, but really what it means is Arab states abandoning the Palestinian cause so that they can then make deals with Israel. He's taken hundreds of thousands of pro-Israel PAC money, including nearly 200,000 from NORPAC. NORPAC you hear about a little less often than APAC, but NORPAC is another just straight up pro-Israel lobby that funds all of our Congress or a lot of our Congress. So all repulsive things. And again, even if you wanted to look past all of that, this speech did nothing. It actually, to me, it actually just highlights how the Democrats are doing nothing. Literally, like the bravest thing they've done so far to stop the so-called fascists in office is a speech that was not even a filibuster that was not even against a bill that barely interrupted senatorial business. I mean, it's just so laughable. They're so pathetic in so many ways. Okay, I want to get on to, and I got more on Israel coming up in a minute, updates on Israel and Gaza, but I want to move on to Luigi Mangione for a few minutes. And I also would love for you guys to hit thumbs up and hit share and leave comments. Comments always help fight the algorithm as well. And I have an announcement to make about schedule again. And I know, it's driving everybody nuts, driving me nuts to flip around the schedule. But the reason it's happened a lot recently is because of the start of Unredacted tonight. So I hope you will appreciate that it is because I'm working so hard to make something as awesome. If I can blow my own horn, totally dirty. I meant it dirty though. I meant it dirty. Because I'm working so hard on that show and trying to keep pumping those out for you one a week. Is why the schedule has been weird. So, and I thought that the Wednesday night with this episode, right here, Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, would work for everything. But the way it needs to be in order for me to get everything done is that the third episode of the week, the Wednesday episode right now, is going to move around. It'll be whenever a topic is hit that is important to cover, and I'll jump in and I'll do a live stream, or it'll be sometimes Wednesday nights. It'll be sometimes Wednesday day when I don't have government secrets. So basically the Wednesday what is Wednesday evenings right now will be the floater episode. That'll move around depending on news and things like that. It'll still be available on YouTube. So you know, whenever, so even if you miss it, even if you didn't notice that it happened, it'll still be there. You can go catch it. It just won't be reliably Wednesday, 8 p.m.s. But the other two episodes stay the same, Monday and Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, and Unredacted Tonight staying the same, which is at 7 p.m. Eastern on Thursdays. Okay, I'll mention that again a little later, but yeah, Wednesday will become the you kind of never know when it's going to happen episode of the week. All right. Feds are seeking the death penalty for Luigi Mangione, and this is more important than it seems. It's not just, oh my God, that's awful, because I'm opposed to all death penalty. But federal prosecutors will seek the death penalty against Luigi Mangione. Trump had talked about this, but it's just officially been announced. The 26-year-old suspect in the shooting death of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi made the announcement Tuesday, describing Thompson's killing as an act of political violence. The Justice Department has moved from dysfunctional to barbaric, said Mangione's lawyer. Upon his return to office, Trump vowed to resume federal executions. So here's why this is more than just like, that sounds bad for Luigi. Ken Klebenstein wrote a good piece on how this means he is more officially a political prisoner. Yes, he's a prisoner because he's suspected of this murder, but it gets into political prisoner territory now that the government has so clearly made it political. This from Ken Klebenstein. Luigi Mangione, now a political prisoner. announcing, because the government has announced its pursuit of the death penalty, Trump administration seems to regard the slaying of the United Healthcare CEO as not just murder, but terrorism, an extension of the designation to anti-corporate crimes. This is a growing trend, labeling criminals as terrorists even before they're convicted of a crime, which is extraordinary in and of itself. As with the administration's campaign against Tesla, quote unquote, terrorists. Yeah, you draw a cock on a Tesla, and now you're a terrorist. That makes a lot of sense. The Mangione case is a nakedly political attempt to throw the book at anti-corporate and anti-government crimes. Britannica defines a political prisoner as a person who is imprisoned because that person's actions or beliefs are contrary to those of his or her government, adding a few more details that describe Mangione well. What all conceptualizations and working definitions of the term political prisoner have in common is they acknowledge the importance of power relations, specifically between dissidents and agents of governmental authority or ruling elites. So it's not that it's not that the arrest of a suspect of a killing is immediately a political prisoner. What makes him a political prisoner is the fact that the Trump administration and many others have made this political. They have said, we are going after the death penalty. We are charging him as a terrorist. Trump is speaking out about his specific alleged actions. Whereas with all the other murders that happen across the country, it doesn't involve the government speaking out about them. It doesn't involve the president. This is a political persecution. They're not just going after him for the crime. They're going after him for the show, for the politics. And of course, it was also clear he was a political prisoner when he was flown to New York, and Eric Adams, the corrupt mayor of New York, did a big show of walked alongside him with 78 gunmen and all this stuff in order to make a big show of how they arrested him and they got him and they're putting him in prison. It's like, could you make this more political? You are actually making his defense better. So I guess that's a plus. They're totally giving him a little more shot at a defense, because this is clearly, he's a political prisoner now. All right, smash those thumbs up buttons. Can't just hit them anymore. You got to smash them. So, the horror show in Israel continues. Oh, by the way, coming up, there are signs that Elon Musk may be exiting the U.S. government soon, and I'll give you why. I'll give you the reasons why that might happen and why it does and does not matter. I'll give you all those reasons coming up in a few minutes. But the UN agency has closed its remaining Gaza bakeries as food supplies dwindle under the Israeli blockade. Israel has cut off all aid into Gaza for several weeks now. And, they were already starving. There was already very low amounts of food. So they're, again, trying to kill as many people as possible using starvation, not just guns. Starvation is an absolute weapon of Israel, and it's getting worse and worse. And Netanyahu has announced some of Israel's plan. He says Israel is establishing a new military corridor across Gaza, the second Philadelphia, declaring that it is now dividing the strip. So they're basically dividing the Gaza Strip into separate areas. Oh, thank you, Big John, for donating over on Rumble. Says, glad to see Unredacted tonight back again. Thank you so much, Big John, for the super chat on Rumble. And for those of you on Rumble or YouTube, I do love a super chat. For some odd reason, it's just a weird thing I've always had. I really like it when people support this show. I don't know what it is. It's like weird, right? It's like, why? Like, I don't even know other people that are like that okay. And scene. But they're separating Gaza into multiple sections so that they can more easily ethnically cleanse people and so that they can't flee as easy. And the other thing I wanted to point out is when they say they're creating a new, line that separates Gaza into halves or into pieces, you gotta put yourself in the shoes to understand how horrific that is. I know it's like if you live in the United States or you live in an area of the world that at least is freer than Gaza. I don't want to say we're free, but freer than Gaza. Then you go, okay, so if the government said, hey, there's a line here and you can't go north, I'd be like, well, that's bullshit. But I'd also be like, all right, what's the big deal? Like there's a line where Canada is, doesn't ruin my life. It's not just a border. It is a border of heavily armed gunmen that often decide areas such as anywhere near the border is just an open fire zone where they just murder children. So it increases the amount of area where Israel will just murder people simply for walking. I mean, they're murdering indiscriminately anyway, but it is like creating these zones. It destroys the ability of families to get in touch with each other. I mean, many Gazan families have been separated anyway, just because they're all fleeing the bombing and everything else and trying to find housing, trying to find food. So they all get separated. But, you could end up with on opposite sides of this line from your children, from your mother, from your father, from your infirmed mother or father or grandmother. It's like, this is not just, oh, okay, so no, don't go north. Big deal. It is a way of dividing and conquering, but when we say conquer, we mean ethnically cleansing. So it is a divide and conquer, but that means ethnically cleansing. CK Flies also threw in a super chat over on Rumble. Rumble.com/Lee Camp. Love your work. Keep fighting. Thank you, CK Flies. Really appreciate that. And for those of you who follow me just on YouTube, it'd be great if you also subscribe on Rumble so that if one channel gets deleted, you'll still be on the other one. It's rumble.com/Lee Camp. But so this is the next plan of Israel. And they're admitting ethnic cleansing. They're saying our plan is to move everybody out of Gaza, which is the definition of ethnic cleansing. And anyway, I wanted to just highlight some other things about what's going on there. By the way, everyone should follow Asel Rad. I think she's a professor, but either way, she's got an amazing account on X, and where she puts mainly shows how terrible Western media is on Gaza, but she puts up a lot of things. Thank you so much, Kuzi. Sorry, I got that wrong. Maybe one of them's right. You say we love you more than you love Super Chats. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Oh, you're gonna make me blush. Anyway, Azalrad says 15 aid workers killed in Gaza, found in mass grave. By the way, these are just the war crimes of the week. These are the war crimes of the week, of the fucking week. This is 1 week. This is a week of war crimes. 15 aid workers killed in Gaza were found in a mass grave. Israeli airstrike kills a journalist and his family in Gaza. Israeli airstrike targets Beirut, meaning Lebanon, in case you didn't realize that, suburb. Casualties were reported. I believe there might have been at least a couple deaths as well. So this is Israel striking Beirut, the center of Lebanon, that it's killing civilians in Lebanon. Rafah evacuation, thousands flee amid attacks and flour crisis. Those are the war crimes of the week. I mean, if you tried to cover all of Israel's war crimes, you'd just be lost. You couldn't over the past year. You couldn't even begin to. Here's more information on just how many journalists they have killed. I often mention that they've killed more journalists than any war. It's used to say any modern war, but the truth is you go back a few years and there weren't that many journalists and there weren't any way to target the journalists that did exist. So there was not a lot of journalists killed in World War I. I mean, probably a few, but not any kind of careful execution of journalists. Whereas that's what they're doing now. They are executing journalists. Cost of War Project. I assume this is the Brown University Cost of War Project, which, by the way, it is brown.edu, which is one of my favorite sources to quote. They do great work on the cost of war, and they are the ones who found that the U.S. and the global war of terror and just terror. I don't want to sound like George W. Bush. Terror. There's terror. War on terror had killed 4.5 to 6 million people just in 20 years, just in that 20-year span, just in the war on terror. So they're the ones that found that in careful examining of the data. Anyway, here's their new report on the war on journalists in Gaza. More journalists have died, they're being generous there, have been murdered in Gaza since October 7, 2023, than in both world wars and other major wars combined. Combined. Can I say combined one more time? Combined. Number of journalists and media workers killed by war. And so for those of you listening to the podcast, by the way, the podcast is called Moment of Clarity on Apple Podcasts. Don't ask why everything I have has a different name. There's a reason for it. But anyway, U.S. Civil War, next to 0 journalists killed. Like I said, there wasn't a way to target journalists, and they weren't like targeting them anyway back then. So World Wars I and II, about 60 journalists killed. Korean War, about 20. Wars in Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos combined, 60. Yugoslav wars, about 40. War in Afghanistan, about 65, 70. Ukraine war, about 30. And then they call it the Gaza War, the assault on Gaza, the genocide in Gaza, 220 journalists murdered. More than all other wars combined. And there's a reason for this, right? It's not accidental. It is because Israel is targeting them. And it's disgusting that our mainstream media avoids this topic. These are their so-called colleagues. These are the so-called people. Yes, Robin says in a year and a half. Yes, in a year and a half. When they say Gaza war, they mean the past year and a half. These are the people that are so-called their colleagues, right? That are in the same profession as them, that they should stand up for, and yet are absolutely spineless. I would say ballless, but I think women are far stronger than men often. So let's say vaginaless corporate media. They won't even stand up for their comrades, for their colleagues, for their whatevers in Gaza. Pathetic. They're pathetic. So let's talk about the pushback, the fight back against this. There is a large march happening in Washington, D.C. Stop the Genocide March, April 5th, 1 p.m., Washington, D.C. It's being promoted by Answer Coalition. What I'm showing on the screen is from marchforpalestine.org. Should be a rather large group there. It's a lot of people connected in promoting this. Jewish Voice for Peace, Palestinian Youth Movement, U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights, Palestinian Feminist Collective. A lot of people involved in this. April 5th, March on Washington. If you're available, maybe check it out. But I will always give the same caveat that I give with marches, which is I think they're powerful to show the camaraderie, to get people off their asses, maybe to meet up with others and organize, to find out who supports you and who supports this idea of ending this genocide. I think it's important for all those ideas, especially for younger people who maybe don't understand that there are thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions that agree so passionately that they're willing to come out to a march like this. Those are all the good things about marches. The bad things is they don't generally change anything outside of what I just listed. Like there is exactly zero, maybe 0.00% chance that 100,000 people, or let's go nuts, 1 million people show up outside the White House and Trump falls to his knees and goes, God, you're so right. I'm going to stop this genocide because I'm going to stop sending missiles and arms to Israel because look at all these people. I didn't realize people cared this much. I had no idea this was a big deal to them. We're going to cut off the arms. We're going to announce that we're going to put sanctions on Israel that are going to crush them. We're gonna declare that their nuclear weapons need to be inspected. We're gonna declare a Palestinian state because look at all these people out my window. Everyone in the chat, let me know the percentage you think that will happen. But could groups at this march meet up and come up with plans to create change in a way that is more significant than this march? Yes. So I'm not opposed to marches. I just think we need to understand what they are and understand their impact and understand how to use them effectively rather than to tell people, show up and we're going to demand an end to this genocide and Trump is going to listen. What? Because, by the way, the largest, I think it's the largest march ever, if you add up all the marches, was one of the anti-Iraq war marches before the U.S. invasion. And, you know, it was, I think, millions, maybe even in London, and millions or close to it in the United States and around the world. And you add all that up, largest march, I think, ever. Did it stop the Iraq invasion? Did it stop the U.S. from absolutely destroying that country and killing 1 million people? Okay. But I always say to create change, you have to interrupt business as usual. Here's an example of that. Here is this is Jewish students, including members of Jewish Voice for Peace at Columbia University, demanding the freedom of Mahmoud Khalil, who is another political prisoner. And I'll play a quick clip of this, but they have chained themselves.
Undergraduate at Columbia. And
I'll just let it play.
I am here because our classmate, our peer, Mahmoud Khalil, and other peers following him have been detained and targeted by ICE, and our trustees are directly implicated in this. They have been directly implicated by congressmen in this handing over the names to the federal government, and we are here in protest of that to demand that the university tell us which trustees, which members of the university administration are responsible for this, so that we can demand immediate consequences for them and hold them accountable for what they have done to our peer. And we are here specifically as Jewish.
That one of our peers right now is currently being held and facing deportation, and the university was directly complicit in that. And the time to stand is now. This is, as Jewish students, like, we grew up, learning about the rise of fascism, learning about how important it is to stand up when you see injustice in the world. We always say, if, looking back at moments in history, saying if only people had stood up, if only people had courage and stopped this before it, and showed that they would not just go along.
Anyway, important words from those protesting for the freedom of not just Mahmoud Khalil, but others have been rounded up and unsummarily put in prison for peaceful protests. And so these people, these students of Columbia, and again, many of them are Jewish, they're Jewish Voice for Peace and others, locked themselves to these gates in order to interrupt business. And they had rather clear demands. It sounded like they wanted to know which trustees were involved in giving those names over, and perhaps who all has been arrested, because I don't know that they always know exactly who's been arrested. But yeah, we now live in a country where they like black bag students for fighting back against genocide. It's pretty unbelievable when you say it out loud. Mind Device is reporting how ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, which It sounds really nice, right? The Anti-Defamation League, but hopefully you know by now that they are a rabid pro-Israel group that literally defend like Elon Musk Sig Heiling on stage, and they act like they're opposed to anti-Semitism, and yet they'll defend Nazi gestures as long as it fits with their pro-Israel regime. And anyway, because schools don't understand, like a lot of schools and lower education and college as well, don't understand that. Thank you, Josh, for the kind words. Really appreciate that. A lot of schools don't understand, or maybe they don't care. I suppose a lot of them don't care, but they think the Anti-Defamation League actually is all about stopping, defamation, anti-Semitism, etc., and they're not at all. And so they have put forward a platform or a program called No Place for Hate, where they go into lower schools like K through 12 schools, so children, and they try to indoctrinate them with their if you criticize Israel, it's anti-Semitism propaganda. And many schools have signed up for this. 2,000 schools, 190,000 educators, and 1.8 million students are subjected to this No Place for Hate program that schools have signed up for. A school that wants to become a designated No Place for Hate school first must register with the ADL and form a steering committee of faculty and students to guide the work of building community and challenging bias at every turn. Now that sounds great, doesn't it? That sounds like a good thing. Perhaps because it focuses on bias instead of racial inequality, the ADL unfortunately does not suggest centering students victimized by bullying and racism to spearhead the committee. So they act like they're there to stop hate, but if it's racism, they don't care so much. It's only if it's criticism of Israel that they care about. Nadia, a Washington, D.C. area educator at a No Place for Hate high school, told us that this created a situation where the predominantly white committee leading the school's No Place for Hate work was not working with the students of color organizations doing similar work at the school. So you got to understand, they come from the outside, and there are already groups saying, hey, we're here to stop bullying, stop hatred, and especially stop, racism, which is often connected to those things. And the ADL's No Place for Hate says, yeah, we're not so interested in the stopping of the racism. Don't care for it so much. Then this educator says, if their true intention was to implement anti-hate or anti-bias work, then wouldn't the ADL manual say to make sure you go out of your way to build relationships with students of color? She asked. So this really is it is so nefarious to to implant themselves in, first graders in kindergarten and say, hey, we're the No Place for a Hate group, and we're going to tell you why you can never be critical of Israel. It really is repulsive. I know I overuse that word, but I think we live in repulsive times, so it's okay to overuse that word. But anyway, Mondo Weiss has a report on this garbage that the ADL pushes across the country. Okay, let's get to Elon Musk's. There seems to be some movement of him out of the U.S. government. This unhinged sociopath, richest man in the world. I don't need to tell you how disgusting he is and how much influence he has over this government. Part of it is because Trump loves people that are rule. He loves rulers. He loves those who own societies. He loves dictators, as does much of the American ruling elite. But so that's part of the reason he loves Elon Musk. He loves those who are sociopaths, who don't actually care about people. By the way, sociopath test. I'm going to keep repeating it. We need a sociopath test. It's not going to fix capitalism, okay? I know that. I know that. But it's a nice Band-Aid. If there were a sociopath test, You'd purge all of Congress, the White House. You'd have a whole new group of people in there, all registered non-sociopaths. And I'm not even kidding. The sociopath tests are real and they work. We can find out who a sociopath is. It can be done, especially with AI. You plug some data in there, AI will figure it out real quick. And it could probably figure it out from writing. I bet you could create an AI program, not you, but someone could create an AI program rather easily, as long as the person has a lot of available like writing and speaking. And I bet you could plug in everything Elon Musk has said and done, and there you could create an AI program that's like, yep, 99.9% sociopath. There's no way they couldn't make that. I bet you could do that. I bet you, oh God, that needs to happen. Whoever can do that out there, do it now. Create an app, you plug in a name, it'll tell you instantly if it's a sociopath. Boom. Boom, bitches. There's no way that doesn't exist. Now, it can't be 100% because there could be people lying out there pretending to care about certain people and they don't. But obviously, it would have to get past some of that lying, you know. Anyway, but Elon Musk, co-president right now, where it's really President Mump, and I was gonna say Trump likes him for two reasons. One is that what I just listed, and number two is that look, Trump in his first term in office, he played 289 rounds of golf. Okay, he doesn't want to go through the minutia of gutting Social Security. He just wants to do it. He just wants to sign something, which is not written by him, right? There's sociopath lawyers that write up each executive statement, executive action, and he signs it. So he's bored by all that shit. He does not want to sit there going through the data of Social Security. He wants Elon Musk or someone like him to walk up and say, hey, Social Security is all fraud, even though they've only, like literally, if you actually look at the numbers, they've found 13 possible people who are dead receiving benefits. 13. There might be 13 cases of dead person fraud going on in Social Security. Elon Musk tells us it's millions or whatever. Anyway, Donald Trump doesn't want to do all that. He's bored by it all. So he wants someone else to go through all that data and to deal with all that and to write the executive action. And so he loves Elon Musk being like, I'm going to create programs that go through everything. And he loves that shit. Anyway, it now seems like there is a push to move by Trump and his inner circle to move Elon Musk out of his government office. And I believe there's some truth to this. I don't know how much impact it will actually have. But anyway, this is from Politico, and there's others reporting similar things. Trump tells Inner Circle that Musk will leave soon. President Trump has told his Inner Circle, including members of his cabinet, that Musk will be stepping back in the coming weeks from his current role as governing partner, ubiquitous cheerleader, and Washington hatchet man. The president remains pleased with Musk and his Department of Government Efficiency initiative, but both men have decided in recent days that it will soon be time for Musk to return to his businesses and take on a supporting role, according to 3 Trump insiders who were granted anonymity to describe the evolving relationship. A couple of things are happening here. One is last night or yesterday, Elon Musk tried to purchase the Wisconsin courts election, the Supreme Court election in Wisconsin. Spent $25 million, which to him is nothing. To us is a crazy amount of money. And he failed pretty spectacularly. It seems that he likely failed because he was trying to buy the election. Like, people came out to vote for the liberal judge because Elon wanted everyone to vote for the other guy. So that was it was kind of a wake-up call and to the Republicans that Elon Musk is getting increasingly hated. His popularity numbers, which as if they matter, are way lower than Trump's. But I think there's more going on than just that. Trump is worried that this could impact his midterm numbers, etc. the way Musk is behaving and the way the nation views Musk now. Musk equally is worried about Tesla stock continuing to crash because a large percentage of his 400 billion or whatever the number is now is wrapped up in Tesla stock. So he's lost 120 to 150 billion dollars just in the past month because Tesla stock is crashing. People are rightfully protesting Tesla. I think they should protest a lot more than just Tesla, but they're rightfully protesting Tesla, and Tesla stock is tanking, and they've lost 120. Elon Musk has lost 120 or more billion dollars. So, like I said, there's multiple things happening here. It's not that Trump hates what Elon Musk is doing and he's trying to get him out because Trump likes Social Security or cares about anyone. No, zero of that. It's that Trump thinks it's going to hurt his numbers to have Elon Musk by his side, and Elon Musk is worried about his money and his Tesla stock, etc. Now, some of the biggest things that Elon Musk wanted to happen, he's largely achieved or in the process of achieving. He has attacked gutted many of the agencies that were investigating him, that were investigating his companies. So he's thereby, in mass corruption, thereby decreased the investigations into his companies. But I'm more on that in just a second, but I had talked about how we live in an inverted totalitarian system. It's ruled by the anonymous corporate state. And I have talked about and done kind of extensive segments on how for generations, perhaps, U.S. corporate America has not been as large as it always was, but at least for the past couple of generations, corporations and the ruling elite have used the government, the so-called elected government in our sham democracy. They've used the government as a shield to protect them from the people. When the people get angry at the decisions that were made by the corporate ruling elite, the people could vote out the politicians. So government, and our federal government especially, was looked at as a shield by the corporate elite. Elon Musk, and to some degree Donald Trump, have made the dumb decision to put themselves in the position of the government. So now people have leverage. People can go, I'm not buying Tesla. I'm spray painting a dick and balls on a Tesla. I am on a Cybertruck. I am going to protest outside Tesla plants. Like, there's a level of leverage that the people can actually go to and have some impact. Normally, the only impact people can do is, I'm going to vote him out, and then they vote him out, and then the next guy comes in, and he's equally controlled by corporate America, so nothing ever changes. So in his idiocy, I know Elon Musk is smart about some things, but he's dumb about this. He has placed himself in the position, in the crossfire of the American people and their anger, those who are angry. And so I think he wants to take himself out of that position. He doesn't want to be there, which is why government existed why our government has largely existed. Our democracy, so-called, has existed in the first place, was to create this shield for the ruling elite. Anyway, I want to show on this topic, Elon Musk was on Fox News, and I think he did not expect the interview question to be this tough. But it's an interesting interview question. And I think the reason Fox News is asking a legitimate interview question, like an actual difficult one for Musk to answer, is because Fox News is really in the pro-Trump boat. And they probably view Musk as harming Trump's numbers or harming his chance of, remaining president for the next 900 years. Anyway.
I wanted to talk to you about what Doge has been doing. So you've been making cuts to a lot of the agencies that have open investigations and regulatory battles with your companies. At the same time, you continue to get billions in government contracts. Tesla gets billions in subsidies. How do you explain that to the American people?
I think right there, the pause is Elon Musk going, I didn't know Fox News could ask a real question. I didn't even know they were capable of it.
Well, everything that Doge does is an open book. So I think the most transparent the most transparent organization in government ever.
So all of that is absolutely false. I mean, Elon Musk is increasingly proving himself to be one of the most prolific liars on the planet. And, even Grok, even his own, for those of you who are lucky enough to not know, Grok is the name of the AI on X, Twitter. And even when you ask Twitter's own Grok, they may have fixed this bug, but when you ask who is the greatest perpetrator of misinformation in the United States, at least for a while, it was saying, well, judging by the number of people who read his post and how incorrect they are, Elon Musk is the largest perpetrator of misinformation. Anyway, so he says that the most transparent thing, Doge is the most transparent thing ever. Utterly bullshit. As you will recall, there were many stories about how no one knew exactly what Doge was doing. Doge went into the Treasury Department and started rifling through data there when it wasn't even clear that it was legal for them to be doing that. And eventually they were stopped, or at least stalled for a while. But during all of that, was there transparency? Was the American people going, oh, we know exactly what they're doing inside the Treasury Department, inside the Treasury data? No. Bullshit. So it's absolute bullshit that it's fully transparent. But the other thing is, where it is transparent, they're largely lying. So, he's like, we're very transparent. We'll tell you that we're looking on cutting fraud out of Social Security. And then he gave a speech in the White House in the Oval Office where he and Trump talked about it. And he said, there are millions of dead people on the Social Security rolls. And we need to, it's crazy amounts of fraud, and we need to get them off. And what he's not telling you, speaking of transparency, and why this is a lie, is because the dead people on the Social Security rolls, almost all of them, like 99.999999999999999% are, yes, they're dead. They're on the Social Security rolls. They're in the Social Security computer. They're not receiving Social Security. Yeah. Social Security keeps their records of dead people. They still have a Social Security number when they're dead. Like, they're still in the computers. They're just not receiving any money. And even if they were to receive money, where would it go? So if you actually read up on this, they think there might be 13 people that are defrauding the Social Security Administration, at least in that way, in terms of receiving dead person benefits. Okay, let's keep going.
Every single Doge action is listed on the Doge.gov website. It's also listed on the X handle. So,
again, not true. And again, when you're lying about things, it doesn't matter if your actions are listed. If you're lying, okay, that's not transparency. It's got to be, to have transparency, you got to be telling the truth about what you're doing. Beyond that, it's utter transparency doesn't matter unless people were, even if they were exclusively telling the truth. Utter transparency on the Doge website doesn't really matter to Americans. How many Americans are studying the Doge website? Furthermore, assuming Doge has a lot of actions, how many people are studying every last action Doge commits? So he's basically saying we can commit whatever crimes, whatever laws we want to break. And this is not to say there's not fraud in the American government, by the way. I'm not defending the American government here. I am just saying this is a corrupt sociopath. Anyway, he's basically saying we can go about all of our corruption, all of our fraud that we're committing with Doge, gutting agencies that are largely going after my businesses, which, by the way, you notice he dodged that question. We can go about all of that as long as we post it in the depths of the Doge website, then it's fine.
if anyone has a concern about any one of those actions, they can bring that up. They can raise that. And I do want to say, like, sometimes we make a mistake. Nobody bats 1,000. We will at times make a mistake, and make a mistake. We'll act very quickly to correct it. I am under such an extreme spotlight, so much scrutiny, that it's literally impossible for me to get away with anything nefarious. And obviously, nor do I wish to.
That's how a sociopath talks right there. Is they say, too many people are watching. I try to get away with nefarious stuff, but no, too many people. I never have. I'm not. Who? What? Oh, that's right. I shouldn't say that I've been thinking about getting away with nefarious stuff, but I can't. And of course, these are all more lies. I mean, I would say trying to buy the Supreme Court of Wisconsin, which he failed at doing yesterday, I'd call that nefarious. I'd call that really nefarious. I'd call that really shitty. And again, this doesn't mean the Supreme Court of Wisconsin is wonderful. I don't know. I haven't studied it, but he certainly did try and buy it. Not only did he spend $25 million on that election, he also did the thing where it was like, if you go vote for the person I want you to vote for, I'll give $1 million reward to someone. And I think he did. I think he did give $1 million away to someone.
So this is a case where we have radical transparency. We're actually willing to admit that we do make mistakes. Often people are not willing to admit they make mistakes, but we are. But we want to emphasize we fix them quickly, and we're trying to do the right thing for the American taxpayer, for the American people. And I think history will be the judge that what we've done here and what we're doing is a very good thing for the strength and future of America.
One can really hope that history will be the judge of this MFer. One can really hope. But I think he knows that the victors write the history, and if he can just take over everything and create a 100% fascist state as opposed to a 60 or 70% fascist state, then they can write their history books. So that'll be great. And then history will be the judge. And he says, we're doing a very good thing for the American people. You noticed, again, he dodged through the full answer. He never mentions the fact that he has very carefully and strategically attacked government agencies that are after his companies, that are investigating his companies thoroughly. And, I don't know all the examples, but I know, like, for example, Trump fired one of the people on the National Labor Review Board. The National Labor Review Board was investigating him for all kinds of violations of labor. Everything from forcing workers to work hours they're not supposed to and not paying them for it, to all the injuries at Tesla. Tesla has more injuries on the factory floors than the following 4 car makers combined. So things like that. All the garbage ways he treats employees. Some of those cases were in front of the NLRB, but because Trump fired someone, the NLRB now does not have quorum, which means it can't do anything. And as long as there's not a person in that spot, it can't do anything. Trump and Elon Musk win. And it's funny because I'm like defending the NLRB. The NLRB is largely captured by big companies anyway. So it's like you defend these things. Same with the EPA, right? They're like gutting or trying to disband or gut the EPA. The EPA is a kind of pathetic organization that hasn't added a new chemical to their list of toxic chemicals in like 20 years. There's like 1,000 new toxic chemicals they've just left off the list so that corporations can keep pumping them into our head holes. And so EPA kind of sucks, but gutting it isn't the answer. It's been largely captured by corporate America, but just ripping it up isn't the answer. Anyway, he doesn't care about the American people. I know you guys know that. He only cares about enriching himself and enriching the other mega wealthy people in this country. And most of these, and I make this point in the last Unredacted Tonight. I hope you watched the last Unredacted Tonight. If you haven't, go to leecamp.com/unredacted and you can watch that episode. But in the last episode, I make the point that if Doge actually wanted to get to the heart, to get to any real level of government waste and fraud, there is one place and one place only they would go: the Pentagon. And I know Trump made some statement about, I'm going to cut 50% of the Pentagon. There's no evidence they're doing that. They also made a statement of, we're going to cut 8% a year. But then when Pete Hegseth was actually asked about it, he said, well, it might be moved to another department. So basically, we want to move 8% around each year. That doesn't mean anything. That's not cuts. That's just moving money around. So if they wanted to do anything, they would go after the Pentagon and the $1 trillion a year that the Pentagon gets, and the fact that the Pentagon could never pass an audit, and the fact that the Pentagon admitted that they can't account for 63% of all their assets. So that is the number one place by a mile that you go if you want to save money for the American people. but it's bullshit. And on top of that, of course, the whole idea of saving money and saving taxpayer money is kind of bullshit because MMT, you got we print as much money as we want as long as we have the petrodollar, et cetera, et cetera. It's not like your taxpayer money actually funds these things. It's, and hence why our national debt doesn't matter. Trillions of dollars in national debt, it doesn't have much impact as long as the petrodollar is working perfectly and we can print whatever we want. So if you want to learn more about all that in a funny way, go to leecamp.com/unredacted, leecamp.com/unredacted. That takes you to the playlist on YouTube that shows every episode of Unredacted. Also, Unredacted Night, next episode coming out tomorrow night, and I hope you will watch that. Okay, I got one more topic here before I wrap up, but I just wanted to again say that I am changing the schedules for Wednesdays. The Monday and Fridays, Monday and Friday live stream will remain at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. So those are the two mainstays. And then the third one each week will be a floater. It will, boy, that sounded like I was talking about turds, but that's not what I meant. It will move around depending on breaking news. It'll move around depending on my schedule and other aspects. So it'll sometimes be on Wednesday. It'll sometimes be Wednesday at 3 p.m. It'll sometimes be Wednesday evenings. It'll sometimes be on a Tuesday or Thursday. I think I don't need to give any more example. I think you know the days of the week. Anyway, so keep an eye out for that. And okay, let's get to our last story here. Thank you so much, Adina, for supporting the show over in Europe. Really appreciate it. Adina says, keep fighting, and thank you. No, thank you. Thank you. And Christian says, BRICS. The world won't tolerate this forever. Balance of powers equation without warmongering. Love it, Christian. Thank you for supporting the show. Okay. I want to talk about this great article from the Duran that really encapsulates what's going on with the American empire in a really good way. Sorry, here we go. It's titled The Big Picture and the Decline of the West. Right now, the center of the American empire, the U.S. government itself, is in the early stages of shedding some of its colonies, especially in Europe. And this is what I've called them vassal states, but colonies is the same idea, such as by demanding them not to consume the most inexpensive fuels that were available to them, which came from Russia. Not just demanding, but also blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline, and which had fueled European industries and kept EU countries economically competitive with other nations. So this has destroyed Europe's economy in many ways, certain countries worse than others, but Europe has gone along with it, falling over themselves to go along with destroying their own economies. And it's been kind of breathtaking to watch. And it's just now starting to shed even its own public, meaning the U.S. is starting to shed its own public by slashing the federal programs such as Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and services to the poor that have the highest public support. This self-cannibalization is normal for an empire in decline, because its billionaires, the richest, the country's aristocracy, the individuals who collectively control the government, have been the beneficiaries of empire and can no longer keep up the lifestyles to which they are accustomed unless they extract it increasingly from their colonies and from their own public. I want to slightly differ with the wording there, although the concept I totally agree with. He says they're no longer able to keep up the lifestyle they had to which they're accustomed. The real ruling elite of this country are so rich that no downtick in stocks or downtick in how much the U.S. can extract from other countries is really going to impact their way of life. They just have too much money. Like, there is nothing Elon Musk could do to even begin to spend the amount of wealth he has, the amount of fake dollars he has, or many of these ruling elite. Even Donald Trump, there's really nothing Donald Trump could do to spend even if we just say it's 3 billion, he thinks he has 10 billion, but even if we just say Trump has 3 billion, there's no way he could even begin to spend anywhere near that amount of money. So it's not the amount of life. It's not the style of life or keep up the life they're accustomed to. Instead, it is just immense greed. They want to keep up the amount of quote unquote growth, because capitalism is cancer. They want to keep up the amount of growth that they're accustomed to, the amount of extraction that they're accustomed to, the amount of enriching themselves that they're accustomed to. Does that make sense? I'm not like, I don't, even a hedge fund manager, let's say a hedge fund manager with $1 billion. It's not that he's at any risk of his lifestyle changing if he's making, 30% more each year rather than 50% more. It's just that the amount of greed in these sociopaths means that they want to keep making 50% or more than that each year. So to see that slowly down ticking very much upsets them. It infuriates them. And so they begin gutting their own citizens or stealing off their own citizens. I mean, they've been stealing off us for years and years, but it gets worse. And, it speeds up. The gutting of the American public speeds up. As he calls it, the self-cannibalization. Let's see. No longer can they extract even more from conquests via invasions, coups, or otherwise, basically looting the vanquished, destroying countries outside the empire, such as Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Libya, Venezuela, and Iran, so it becomes increasingly replaced by destroying itself. The empire is eating itself. The same thing, I believe, although I don't study ancient Rome that much, but I believe similar things happened to ancient Rome. It got giant, bloated. The rich were completely detached. And by the way, people act like Rome fell in a day, but it actually was many, many years that it took of atrophying and eating itself. The West, the U.S. and allied colonies, countries are shrinking as a percentage of global GDP, PPP. So GDP, if you look at GDP, you go, oh, the U.S. is still on top or, maybe slightly below China. I don't even know where it is, but essentially on top. But if you add a purchasing power parity, meaning we look at what the dollars in these countries actually mean, then the U.S. is far lower, is shrinking far more in GDP purchasing power parity, which is that's the real measure of economics. Like, if you just look at GDP, that doesn't really tell you things. What you have to look at is GDP plus purchasing power parity, meaning you even out for how much the currency means, how effective, how impactful it is, how powerful it is. They're meaning the West, approximately 2,000 billionaires whose percentage of that national wealth has been increasing while that of their countries are declining, are becoming less and less dependent upon exploiting the entire world. Thus, these billionaires are becoming more and more dependent upon exploiting their own people, their domestic population of workers and consumers. It is the stage of imperial overreach. Consequently, for example, America's current president, Donald Trump, who's a billionaire, represents America's billionaires who have funded his entire political career, and he is now seeking to extract from the American people yet more money to further enrich those billionaires. The die-off attrition of America's government will thus be very profitable for America's wealthiest individuals. And he's talking about the privatizing of all these industries, all these aspects of the federal government, all these things created, a lot of them during the New Deal. These were aspects of the government that we got because simply for being a citizen of the United States, you get some things in order to allow our society to continue without fully collapsing. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps. These things are largely designed to pick up the pieces of capitalism, because capitalism, by definition, will move all the wealth to the top and destroy millions of lives in one way or another. And so you have this safety net, it's literally called a net, to catch all of the people who are being churned up and spit out by this machine. And do you honestly fucking believe that it is all of their faults? That every last person who's been churned up and spit out by this ridiculous system, they all just chose to be, they're all just lazy. They're all just not working hard. Bullshit. There are people with 3 jobs and 2 jobs who can't make their rent. Like, are they not working hard? Are they lazy when they're going from one job to another and never seeing their kids? So remarkably fucked up. And then we go, oh, well, we should gut these and take these away. We should take, literally, they're taking away food stamps and school lunches for poor children as we speak. Anyway, it says federal protections get taken away, but ultimately everything will become privatized so that this model of capitalism, the resultant purification of American libertarianism, the quote unquote free market, will approach even closer to 100% than it already does. The American, unfettered capitalism, it's more unfettered even before Trump than most other capitalist countries. We were already one of the kind of most cutthroat capitalist countries, and now we're making it worse. Let's see. So that the controlling billionaires will end up in control over everything in America, including basic services to the public. Oh, by the way, they're talking about latest thing is gutting postal service. I mean, they've been doing that for years, but Trump wants to ramp up the gutting of the postal service. Why would he do that? The postal service is one of those services in America that provides a pretty great service for sometimes ridiculously affordable rates. I mean, if you're talking a letter, you can send a letter across the country for, I don't even know what a stamp is now, 50 cents? Whatever the cost is. It's cheap. Amazing. Like, imagine if the Postal Service were just a regular U.S. company. How much do you think it would cost to send a letter across the goddamn country? Several dollars. It'd be a factor of, 100 different than what it is now. But that's what they want to do, right? They don't like that this service by the U.S. government is affordable for people. And they can make lots of money by charging way more for those things. He continues, anyone who isn't a billionaire will be dependent upon billionaires. This is how it's been in America ever since at least 1980. Let's see. I'll just read a little more and then we'll wrap up. But instead of drastically cutting benefits, the plan, he's talking about gutting Doge working to cut Social Security. Instead of drastically cutting benefits, the plan seemingly is to make it more and more difficult for people who have earned those benefits by working in this country their whole lives. It make it more and more difficult for them to get them. And I covered this the other day about how they're trying to make it just as hard as possible for people to get Social Security. He continues, that's why Musk and his Doge bros want to cut thousands of jobs from Social Security's workforce, close regional offices, and limit phone service by, quote, requiring recipients to show up in person to verify certain changes to their accounts. It's designed to just make it difficult as possible. They call it in the corporate world, they call it friction. So, Amazon is really proud of how frictionless their ordering process is, right? Because it's like 1 click or 2 clicks to buy shit on Amazon. That's a frictionless ordering process. Elon Musk and the rest are trying to make Social Security as frictionful as possible, as difficult as possible, as many hoops as possible. And of course, that's the health insurance world in which we live. Our health insurance is designed to be as frictionful as possible, as difficult as possible, both difficult to understand, difficult to conceptualize the benefits versus the costs. And they know this. It's not an accident that healthcare plans are remarkably complicated to understand or to be able to appreciate whether this is something you need or don't need, or whether you'll be able to get the coverage you need when something actually happens. It's all by design. They've carefully designed these things to be confusing, to be a maze of bullshit and paperwork, and as much friction as possible, all right? That's what they're looking for. I almost made a dirty joke there. There's a dirty joke to be made about taking away all the lube or something, but you know what? I'm not going to do it. Not today. Not now. Even though it's the late show. Just for you guys, because I know there's a lot of kids up at 9:15 on the East Coast watching this right now. Okay, excellent article over at the Duran about how the U.S. is now cannibalizing itself. I'm gonna wrap up, but I am excited to see you tomorrow for Unredacted Night. I'm not gonna give too much away, but it's a goddamn good episode. I'll just say that the opening segment might have to do with how Israel might have perhaps knew and allowed October 7th to happen. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. Unredacted Night tomorrow night. If you are unsure as to where to find it, just go to leecamp.com/unredacted and you'll find it there, or go to my linktree, linktree.com/leecamp. By the way, this YouTube, I'm not a big pusher of merch. Through my whole career, I've not been a big merch pusher because I don't want to overdo the buy thing. That was not an NSYNC or Backstreet Boys or whichever one sang that. But however, there are now Unredacted Tonight stickers and t-shirts over on YouTube because I am hoping to make the show sustainable, and that's why I did it. Anyway, if you happen to check that out. So Unredacted Night tomorrow, and then another live stream, 3 p.m. Eastern Friday. Thank you so much, guys, for being here, for supporting the show, and I will see you later. Keep fighting.
Well, brother, I salute you, though, man. You're one of the few that bring together this tremendous artistic talent and still be in such deep solidarity with oppressed people.
It's an honor to be here because I'll tell you, Lee, you have one of the funniest shows on television, bar none.
It's an enormous pleasure to be here. While I was waiting, I was leafing through your wonderful book.
The same to you. I love your show. Be happy to come back anytime.
Lee, this is one of the great honors of my long career, just to be in the same earth with you.
I'm sure.
We're just so blinded. We have so many blinders on because our society doesn't want us to know things. And so it takes shows like your show, and
it is clearly designed to eradicate.
Hey, good to see you.
Hey, Jill, how are you? Julian, thanks for joining me. Honor to have you, brother.
Consumerism is a theory that people should behave this way to help each other. It's not.
Mr. George Galloway, thank you so much for joining me in these dark times.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you so much, Lee, for having me on. Keep fighting. Ha ha.